I was 20 years old. I made a really bad decision with another deputy. He was married. I wasn't. He ultimately ended up divorcing his family, moving on from me. I was very young. He was much older than me. He ended up going and beating up like a corrections officer, gets with her, beats her up, gets fired, then goes and gets with another woman on their wedding night, gets into a domestic with her, and he ends up getting all of his certifications pulled. Like he ended up really having some mental stuff. We have what's called normalcy bias, where you've lived your life up to this time and you've never really had anything bad happen to you. And so you just don't think it's ever going to happen. But that's what predators are looking for.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Juan Cephas from Fit PD, and this is Lineup with Fit PD. You know, I was a peace officer for almost 30 years. I retired as a sergeant. And I had a second job during that time period, which I still have today, and that's teaching at the police academy. I've been doing that job for over 24 years, and I feel privileged that I've met a lot of different people. I'm still continuing to meet a lot of different people, and one of our guests is one of those people. Our guest today is a former law enforcement officer who was injured on the job and was forced to retire. Imagine if you're doing what you love and all of a sudden, for whatever reasons, you have to stop doing it. Well, that did not stop our guest today. Our guest, it empowered her. Based on her background in martial arts, she moved forward and she actually became a podcast host. She also is a sought-out public speaker, motivator, and trainer in the area of self-defense, empowerment, and leadership. She is the founder of She is an Asset. This is a women's empowerment and leadership training company where she is dedicated to helping women to become a better version of themselves and step out fully into the power that they actually have. I want you to please welcome Autumn Schmidt to the show. Autumn,
Thanks for having me. Thank
you for
you.
being here. I'm so happy you're here. So happy you're here.
Well, I am very honored that you had me here. So thank you.
Right on. You know what? Let's I definitely want to start talking about your journey, but I want to start out, when you first started into law enforcement, because, it was taken away from you for reasons beyond your control. Now, take us back to when you became a peace officer. Why did you want to be a peace officer?
Well, so this kind of goes back to my martial arts career. So I've been in the martial arts since I've been 5 years old, and my teacher, which I call him sensei, that's teacher in Japanese, he was a police officer. And then I had an uncle who was also a police officer, and both of them were very important to me at a very young age. They've inspired me. And so essentially, I have been in, again, like by the time I was 18, I had been, over close to like 15 years of, martial arts. I'm like, what am I going to do with all of this? I can't go sit in an office. I tried to do hair. It didn't work out. And I said, you know what? Like, whatever. I've always wanted to. And I enrolled. So I quit doing hair on a Friday and enrolled into criminal justice college on a Monday.
Okay. All right. And once you were in it, what'd you think? Love it, hate it? What'd you think?
I think all of it. There's parts of it, right? So for me, those parts that I loved, there's a lot of things that I just didn't love about it. I think that truly, I think we have a lot of systems that are broken and it makes law enforcement's job very difficult. I think, as a police officer, the revolving door is very difficult because you don't feel accomplished, right? So if you're dealing with you're seeing criminals, you're seeing actual bad people prey on actual good people, and you try to solve that crime, then that goes into the district attorney and the court system, and then you hope that that is going to, you know, do their job. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of we're seeing a lot of district attorneys' offices, a lot of court systems that aren't actually uh, punishing crime. And so when we see those things, or I mean, and we see it in mental health, right? Juan, I mean, we have mental health crisis. This system, there is no system. It's completely broken. And then, but unfortunately, who deals with it all? It's
Hmm.
law enforcement. And so those things really were tough for me. But I enjoyed interacting with the people, like the community. I love being out with people. I love talking to people. I was able to get myself into a position where my agency would actually send me out to go and do talks and help conduct trainings. So that was really cool. And so that was something I really loved.
So that was like part of community policing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to do that gig also, and I just love talking to the people.
Yeah. Here's what I think. I think there's a really great balance because when you go out and you're all the time dealing with the same stuff and, things get monotonous, it's really nice to go out and be like, oh, the whole world isn't that way, you know?
Yes, we need that reminder because we see so much negativity.
I'm telling you. And it really messes with you. And then again, you get a very skewed vision. And I think, I mean, I know I'm really jumping the gun, and then we're going to talk about it, but truly, I just really believe that that's what we're seeing. A lot of our first responders, not just law enforcement, we're just seeing, we see this small sliver over and over and over, day in and day out, and you're dealing with the same people and all the things. Like you really start to believe, of course, you're going to start to believe everybody's that way, right?
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, with your background in martial arts and becoming a cop, how does that play into your situational awareness on the job?
Yeah, so, I think so obviously situational awareness is the most foundational skill to self-defense, and without it, you have nothing. And I believe that, obviously my martial arts helped me with that. I've been literally fighting since I've been 5 years old. Um, and then, when you get older, I was going multiple days a week. And then as a preteen, like I pretty much lived at my dojo 4 days a week. I'm in adult classes. I'm taking black belt classes when I was very young. And so then I'm fighting a lot of big dudes. I had to learn like firsthand, put that back up against the wall because otherwise, if I don't, they're coming from my back. Right. And
Right, right.
I just learned things, I hands on. Right. So that really helped me when I became a police officer. I mean, I was by no means had any clue, right? I don't think any officer, when you first start, you don't have a clue for a long time. But I think that I think that helped. The other thing that, I talk a lot about is developing a command presence. In the academy, they taught a lot about that, but especially being a woman and a rookie, I do things that were not going on my side. I really had to figure that out, and I had to figure it out fast because you're being judged, you're being sized up
Yeah.
constant, right? And so I talk a lot about that, and I teach civilians that now. I mean, I was teaching law enforcement, women in law enforcement that, but as well as, the civilian sector now because it's your number one deterrent. If you look like you got it together, that's half of the equation.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I don't want to jump ahead either, but since we're here, you brought up the topic of women in law enforcement. And since you teach, this whole concept of empowerment, um, how does being a female in law enforcement and gaining the empowerment and respect from your peers? How does that look?
Well, I think it looks different for everybody in every situation. I also think that every personality is different. I'm just, first and foremost. But I think that what's important is that we go out there and we all do the job. And I think sometimes, we think that because we're, female, maybe the standards shouldn't be the same. But, I think that they should be pretty close, to be honest. And I really believe that women can do a lot of the things that men can do, and we want to be able to go out there and show that. And I feel a little conflicted that like, the words that I want to say are you need to prove yourself, but I'm just going to say this. Men need to prove themselves too, because
Yes.
it didn't matter. I can say this. Yeah, everybody when there's a new chick on or around or in uniform, everybody's like really hard on her for sure. But I do know that it doesn't matter. Just a new officer, even a male, we're hard on them too. Like, Jesus, are they going to be able to like get it together or not? Ultimately, what do we all want to know? We all want to know, does our backup have our backs? Like that's what we need to know. If you're a shit sandwich and you can't handle the calls or whatever, but you are really tactically sound and if shit hits the fan, like you can back me up. Like I'm not gonna lie to you, I always gave a lot of grace for that. I'm like, I don't really care. All that shit, I don't care because I want this person on my side, right? And I think ultimately that's what people are looking at when they look at females in law enforcement is are they going to be good backup? I mean, because your life could depend on that. And so, I think that, being able to have the skills and the tactics and the tools to be able to, not only save my own life, but the people around me, I think that's really, really important.
I agree with you 100%. You know, to your point, we can't teach you the grit to come in and just have to use force without being told what to do. Um, there's some people that just can't do it quite well. The other side of the coin is that if you're not very good at taking reports or doing some of the other functions that we do as police officers, guess what? You're gonna learn that. You'll get there. So, we just need you to really be a good backup officer.
100%.
Now, as you're working and not knowing what the future is going to hold, and you're working with different types of victims, and later on in life you start empowering people, not to women specifically, not to be victims. What patterns of victimization do you see on the job?
Well, here's the biggest thing, right? And it really doesn't matter what a person does for a job or who they are or what, but like I think that what happens is we all develop like these limiting beliefs. At some point in our lives, we've been told, whether it be society, whether it be somebody who we really care about, have told us that like we can't do something or we're not good enough. And so for me, I'm really big on that. Like I start there with the victimization of our own limiting beliefs. What are you talking yourself out of? Like, what do you think that you can't do? Where do you think you're not good enough? Because we all have it, male or female, it doesn't matter. And so my approach, really, we need to go there. The second thing, especially for women, is we talk ourselves out of listening to our gut and trusting ourselves. And again, society wants us to do that. And so I think that we get ourselves in these situations where we are victims of domestic violence or, other situations, some sort of violence, because we're not listening to the red flags. We're not listening to ourselves. We are saying, I'm too emotional. Oh, I'm overreacting. And we'll just shove these feelings down, oh, well, everybody likes him or her, and I should just like them too. But you've got, your sirens are going off. However, you're not listening. And so what happens? Every single time something bad happens. Every single time. And so I think I know I went off from what you were expecting me to say, but we can't skip these because this is where victimization starts. It doesn't just, in my mind, it doesn't just start like randomly. It really starts in the mind and not trusting our gut, which then leads us to, we'll be in some sort of situation, whether it be emotional, mental, or physical. But, you know, a lot of times it doesn't just start there. And that's what I've seen. And so I really work, I have a 360 approach. It's a body, mind, and intuition approach to really, empowering women and obviously their body, right? So we start with that situational awareness. That's where we start. We have to have that. And then if you can learn how to use your body as a weapon and you can learn how to defend yourself and learn how actual powerful you are right here, right now, man, it just changes things.
Absolutely. As I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking that, there's another side to this mindset that you're talking about, which is doesn't matter men or woman, when young recruits get to the academy, they hesitate in using force. And maybe it's kind of related to what you explained, which is, sometimes you give people the benefit of the doubt that, well, maybe they're not really, they just want to walk away from me. They're not really assaultive. And next thing you know, they get punched, they get kicked, they get knocked to the ground, and somebody mounts them. Worst case scenario. And so, like what you're saying is really helpful because whether you're a civilian or you're a cop, you need that situational awareness and you need to react to whatever it is that you're seeing.
Yeah, and you need to trust your gut, right? Like a lot of times we really get into our heads. If you ever look at the best officers, in my opinion, are the ones who they're very intuitive. They may not admit it, but like the guys and the girls I've worked with and I've seen and gotten to know, that it has been they just, I don't know, the way that they're like, yeah, my gut. Well, I'm like, why would you do that? Yeah, my gut just told me, like, I don't know, that we had to do it this way, right? I mean, especially look at the senior guys, right? Especially SWAT guys. They've done it so many times. They know they're listening to like their gut. They're not letting their hamster wheel go crazy in their mind. They already know. And I think it's not talked about enough in law enforcement, to be honest.
No, I agree with you. Um, Now, we're talking about victims. What, if any, emotional toll does it take on officers to see so much preventable harm?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think what happens is we take it home to our house and then we're like crazy overprotective. Right?
Yeah. Yes. With our kids
Yes. Anybody we love, our kids,
or
our
anybody that we
spouses.
love.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We can
Because I
become
could,
the problem.
oh, yeah, we can become the problem. Yeah. Because then what do we do? Then we become so overbearing, right? Nobody knows what to do around us. Honestly, what people don't understand is like, law enforcement sees all the bad days. We see, like I'll just never forget. Like I started developing and these are compared to like a lot of big cities, obviously, like where you're from, where you live, it's minor, but in Maine, this is a kind of a big deal. One of the calls that we had was a gentleman was literally mowing his lawn, and he was on a riding lawnmower, and it was on a hill, and he rolled and he rolled over and got killed. It like rolled on him and it killed him.
Wow.
And it's like, he's just out mowing his lawn. I mean, something we all do, right? But it's one of those things. So now you're like, your heightened awareness is like, holy shit. But it's just one of those things that you're like, man, that could have been so prevented, you know?
Yeah. So I can see how, when you're providing this training to women to empower them, just being self aware, like just being aware of situations to be able to prevent things that any harm to you. Like you may not be able to see that the lawnmower is going to kill you, but you can see that, maybe it's not the best idea that I walk down this particular street.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Right. Hmm. Yeah, and I think we talk about that. I talk a lot about that. I think today's day and age, society wants us scrolling. They want, they want us busy on our phones, checked out now with the Meta sunglasses and these, headphones that we can put in and just all this stuff. Like society just wants us completely checked out. And so I'm a huge advocate of not being checked out. I mean, and that makes you a harder target than that, I don't know, 50% of everybody else who's got all the gadgets and they're always, they're just busy, glazed over, not really paying attention.
Yeah, well, it's sad to see. Like, I pick up my daughters from high school, and I would say more than 50% of the kids walking home, they're all looking at the phone and walking at the same time, and they got headphones on.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, whoa, that's just
Yeah, in my classes I do demonstrations as I make the women walk and text and I'm like, I'm coming up behind you at some point, but when you know that I'm behind you, turn around. They have no idea. And it's silent, right? Because you can hear a pin drop because everybody's like, "Oh, what's gonna happen?" And so imagine you're out and about and you're going someplace, you're out, that you have traffic going by, you're at a parking lot, you're at TJ Maxx, what and anyways, and so I'm just saying that it's such a big deterrent and we don't realize it. The thing is, Juan, is so many people will say, "I'm aware.
yeah.
I'm aware. I don't need to, I don't, what do you mean? I'm super aware." And some people are, but some people just tell themselves they are. And unfortunately, it makes them an easy victim.
Well, that exercise that you do sounds like a great one. And some of the people that think they're well aware, they need to do that exercise.
I know. It's a great exercise. I recommend it to everybody to do in your classes. Show the people, especially high school students, right? Like,
Yes, especially for sure. Now, just switching gears a little bit.
yeah.
At some point, you get injured, and so, um, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking?
Yeah, so I was only on the job full time for about 6.5 years. And during that time, I became a defensive tactics instructor at our academy in Maine, which is the only academy that every law enforcement officer in the state has to go through. And and that was fun because you look like this and they're like, "Yeah, what is she gonna teach me?"
Right.
And a few sidekicks to the head, and they were like, all right, I'll listen." So that was cool. Um, I did a few other things on the job, became a part of Maine's first human trafficking task force, got trained by HSI. It was cool. It was back in 2014 and in Maine. Again, we were very unfamiliar at that time with human trafficking, especially, the police departments and stuff. So um, I think that, that was very eye-opening, and quite devastating, to be honest with you, because as you know, that it's a terrible thing. So, I'm doing all of that. I met my, police academy sweetheart, which is my husband. We met in the police academy and, he works for the state police and he became a canine handler. I was working on my master's in criminal justice. And I tell you all of this because our lives were law enforcement. Like that's what it was. All of our, we both went to criminal justice colleges. All of our friends were in law enforcement. Like, so what happened was, my back started hurting me really, really bad when I was on the job. And to the point where when I'd put on my duty belt within 10 minutes, my bottom half was all numb. But I didn't say anything for a long time because I'm like, maybe this is normal. And I just didn't want to be that girl, right? I just didn't want to be the girl that had a problem, always creating issues. Like I just was like, whatever. And so I stretched and I'd work out and I'd do everything I could. But finally, it got so bad that I like just putting on my uniform pants became excruciating on my back because of how bad it hurt. And eventually I went and I saw, a chiropractor. He took x-rays. He's like, "You're done. No, you're done." And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I went back to work. But then the second time I went and saw him, he ended up being like, no, you're done. Or, it was very bad. Then I ended up getting an MRI, and essentially it was a hernia. I had a herniated, torn, and degenerative disc all on my lowest back. And so I couldn't sit for long periods, couldn't stand for long periods, couldn't walk for long periods. And again, my lowest half was all going numb. And so basically my doctor pulled me out overnight. And so that was devastating, devastating. I was in therapy 5 days a week, like physical therapy 5 days a week for 6 months. I was couch ridden. I really couldn't do anything. And I was very depressed. I got diagnosed with PTSD and an anxiety disorder.
Wow.
And, I eventually finished my master's. But do you know the two things you can do with a master's?
Well, you can teach.
You can teach college, but guess who I was competing with? Police chiefs.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Police chiefs, 20 years on, 25 years on, and they had masters and some had PhDs. So I'm now an adjunct college professor, but that took me 5 years. Like that wasn't like, oh yeah, your girl got hurt and I'm just gonna go teach college. There was a lot of years in between there. And what is really big, and I just would like to press upon, anybody listening who's a first responder, is I went through a major identity crisis because my entire identity was the job. My self-worth was the job, everything.
Well, that loss of identity is very important because it's, in your case, due to an injury, and that's like a um, sudden event. But sometimes people, first responders, still go through that when they retire, even though they know they're retiring. The day they walk away, all of a sudden they're having a crisis. Yeah, they're having a crisis. Any advice for people that are, in those shoes?
Yeah, and so I used to coach and teach a lot about this actually. What's really important is that we have to really identify that we're so much more than just the job. I have met a lot of first responders from across the country, and they would just be like, I've just been a cop for like 20 years. Like, what the hell else? What else am I gonna do? And what's really important is you have to really look at all the skills that you've developed inside the job. There's no other job like it. You have, so much to offer, so many different skills, leadership skills, communication skills, writing skills, um, you know, like stress mitigation and all these things, and crisis negotiation, and just all sorts of different skills that really can be used um, in like the real world, like like the civilian world.
Right.
But we downplay all that. And we downplay it in law enforcement and first responders. Like we downplay the fact that like you go through all these trainings and then like we're like, you don't think that you're good enough because like everybody that you work with have gone through these trainings, but it's like, yeah, but compare yourself to everybody else. They do not have the skill level that you have. They don't have the experience. They have no idea what it's like you know, to talk a suicidal subject off a bridge. They have no idea what that's like. They don't know what it's like to conduct these vehicle stops at night and you're all by yourself and you got a car full of people and you have got to assess and deal with the situation. These are very high stress situations that the majority of people do not have to deal with. You can go run a company. You can go be the number two or the number three in some large companies, leading teams, doing whatever you want. And I think that's what we really need to be pressing upon our first responders. They are so much more than just the job.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I think we sometimes underestimate our own abilities.
Yeah.
Yes. Can you walk us through your grieving process? So you're unable to do the job you love, and now recovering through martial arts and some of the experiences that you picked up on the police department, and how do you reinvent yourself?
Yeah. I wish it was easy. I wish it was easy for me, but it wasn't. So I suffered a really like a deep depression. I wasn't suicidal, but I can tell you, like, I understood how people can get that way because I just felt like, am I just gonna go be the Walmart greeter? Like, what am I gonna do? I really had no idea. And I felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna have to go find a minimum wage job. And that's what a lot of law enforcement does. We're like, it's either here or we're like a piece of shit. And that is the identity crisis we suffer, that unless you've experienced it, you don't understand that. And that's where I was. Um, so here's what I did. Honestly, I binged a lot of Tony Robbins because I had the time and I wasn't really getting any better. Nothing was really helping me. And and so I binged him and I hired myself a coach, and the coach really helped me to see things different. And for me, this all happened back in like 2016. And that was really before there wasn't really any podcasts for law enforcement. The mental health movement that we have today really didn't exist for law enforcement. And so I was really one of the pioneers when it comes to coaching for law enforcement. There was nobody doing it. There was nobody at the time, not online, not that I could find. And so I just started being like, yeah, I'm going to take my training education experience and I'm going to help people. I started out helping civilians, and helping women, build confidence and, overcome adversity as I was overcoming. And all the tools I was learning, I would, I would teach them and they would apply it. And it was really helpful. And then eventually, law enforcement kept reaching out to me, and I would, whatever I knew, I would teach them. And then eventually I started my own podcast. And the reason I tell you that is that podcast was, if you go back and you listen, it's called She's an Asset. But if you go listen to episodes 1 through 20, you hear a very hurt, angry young woman who started that podcast as therapy for myself. And I was just explaining what I was going through. And at the time, again, there was no podcast. There was nothing, no, there was nothing for law enforcement. And at the time, nobody was saying the shit that I was saying. And so by episode 20, I'm like, all right, guys, I'm done. This was great. Like, I said everything I needed to say. And my inboxes became flooded from men and women across the world. And they're in law enforcement, they're first responders. And they're like, wow, nobody understood me like this. Nobody's talking like this. And so then I just kind of kept going.
Can you tell us like the top two um, comments that first responders were making on that podcast? Like, what were they requesting from you?
Well, I mean, so here's what I heard. A lot of the comments was like, yeah, wow, you really understand me. Or I never heard it put this way, because at the time nobody was vulnerable and real enough to be like, hey, I'm fucking free. Like, I'm freaking out. I'm spiraling, and my PD, and I would just talk about things that were like how we eat our own, and how the hard truth of how your PD will turn their back on you, and how is the brotherhood actually the brotherhood? Just shit that nobody was saying back then. And so when I was saying it, a lot of men and women were like, man, I just feel really understood. And then the next comment, and I actually wrote articles and they got published in Law Enforcement Today and a couple other, um, I'm trying to think of there's a couple other law enforcement online magazines that I got published in, but I can't remember. But the second most popular was, can you talk to my spouse? Because my spouse doesn't understand me. And with me being the cop and the wife,
Oh yeah.
I, I see things differently than civilian spouses. So I have episodes on there that are, okay, if you're a cop, this is for your spouse. Okay, if you're the spouse, this is for your cop, and that became quite popular.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, especially because we don't talk about it.
Hmm.
We try to ignore it. We try to act like, yeah, that's not me. So I'm glad you were able to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, at some point, you decide I'm going to take everything that I'm experiencing and I'm going to empower women through self defense. How does that come about? How does that come about?
Yeah. So, okay. So we got to go back. So we start the podcast. We're doing the things. We're making an impact. Getting asked to speak. So now I speaking nationwide, keynote speaker. I'm doing the thing. I'm teaching in police departments. I'm doing the things. And then I shift and I focus just on women in law enforcement. At the time, the podcast, we have like over 250 episodes, but there was a time where almost every day I was putting out a podcast and it was for female officers every day. Okay, so I was busy, but I had things to say, and the women were really going through it. And I'm not saying they're not anymore. I think they definitely still are, but like women were really, we were going through a tough time, and so I wanted to kind of be like the big sister who I have done a lot of stupid shit in my life. When I was 20, I was 20 years old. I made a really bad decision. You know, with another deputy. He was married. I wasn't. I made a bad decision. He ultimately ended up divorcing his family, moving on from me. I was very young. He was much older than me. He ended up going and beating up, I don't know. He ended up beating up like a corrections officer, gets with her, beats her up, gets fired, then goes and gets with another woman on their wedding night, gets into a domestic with her, and he ends up getting all of his certifications pulled. Like he ended up really having some mental stuff. But, at 20 years old, again, I take full responsibility for my side. But what happened was that I got pegged to be a homewrecker and
Wow.
that I was the problem. And, I took advantage of this married man. And like a lot of things were happening that I really, if I could have prevented if I just changed, personality traits, if I could have just realized a few things and like, Autumn, he doesn't love you. Right? Like, but I didn't know. I didn't know. I was young. I was 20 years old. I mean, holy shit. And he was like, he wasn't my official FTO, but he was somebody who was helping me a lot. And so I started speaking out and telling women, like, hey, you don't need to wear evening makeup to work. In fact, you don't need to wear a lot of makeup at all. In fact, please don't, because you don't want to attract these things. Don't flirt. You're flirting, you're bubbly, don't. And I would just say things, how like makeup on your collar, like that looks like shit. You look like shit. If your nails are, 9 inch, you got 9 inch nails on duty, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And the reason I would say things like that is because I did it, Juan. Like I did it. It wasn't because I was better. I just did that stupid shit. Like one day I had nails and I was in a situation and I was in a bit of a scuff and I had to get the handcuffs on and I popped like one or two nails and I just looked like a bag of ass. Like what? We don't need that. And so I just started talking about it. And I'm very in your face if you can't tell. Like I'm just who I am. It's just what it is. And it created such like a spark online that we had influencers and we had fake profiles. I learned what it was like to be famous without actually being famous. I had hundreds and hundreds of profiles that were essentially like trying to cancel me online.
Yeah.
They would take my photos, take my videos, they'd make memes. I was all over all the satire social medias and they would just pass it around and then eventually, they would just start saying things like, you know, um, I was never a police officer. I must have slept with my whole police department. I was only an auxiliary police officer, that I prey on females. So now women are weak. So now are all, women this and women, but now women are weak and I'm preying on them. So it just, there's podcasts about me. Like I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Oh,
Um, I really lived rent free in so many people's heads that I didn't even, never even met, didn't even know. And while this was going on, my inboxes were flooded with women saying, I know this is hard, but this is what I'm going through at my PD. I'm being outcasted. I'm being sexually harassed, but this is, I love this job so much. And like, they're trying to cancel me. Like, can you just keep going? And, I did for a while. I continued. I've hosted in-person retreats for law enforcement. I've done all these things. Um, but Juan, there was a point where I just couldn't take it mentally anymore. I just couldn't. And there's a part of me that feels a little bit sad that I did like I had to take some time off mentally for myself because there's obviously that fighter in me that is like, nah, man, I should have just kept going. But at the time, I just didn't have the strength, straight up. I mean, when you're getting online and everywhere you look, and people who you used to look up to who do not know you, they don't know you. These police officers, these influencers, they had no idea about me. One call to the Maine Criminal Justice Academy would have just fucking all the rumors would have been gone. But they love the rumor mill, and it gave them something to post about. Every time I did anything, it just gave them more fuel. And so, in fact, I'm sure it's still going on. I just don't look. I block everything. And I tell you that story because bullying is real. Okay. Well, oftentimes we think that it happens just, on the playgrounds or in high school or elementary school. No, it is happening everywhere. And it happens with adults. And it can be very life altering. And it was for me. It was. From this place, I took time off online. I had to get off online. I had to get back into the real world. And what continued to happen was, and again, this is like a God thing. All of a sudden, businesses and companies are reaching out to me and they're like, "Hey, Autumn, can you come teach self-defense?" I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "No." No, like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because everybody can teach you self-defense. Go to," and I'm like, I recommended all these martial arts clubs, right? I'm like, "Just go. They're doing it. They're crushing. Like, go." And they're like, "Okay, well, that's not what we want. Like, we have a staff of females. The homelessness is like on an uptick. There's a lot of violence occurring. They're scared. What do we do?" And I was like, well, I'm going to teach you my class. And my class is going to be based around situational awareness because that's your most foundational skill. And the thing is, Juan, and you're as a martial artist for yourself, is like, unless you're going to come and train and learn how to fight, I just want to give you some tools that hopefully that don't even get you into that situation in the beginning to
Right.
begin with.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And that's how it started. I did my first training in 2023 at a hair salon, and it's taken off like wildfire. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Autumn, that's a great story. I love to hear your experience because taking that negativity of the bullying and the way we eat our own, especially in law enforcement. I mean, people that are not in law enforcement have no idea.
No idea.
And especially to women. We are horrible people to women. It happens to men, but we are horrible to women. And I'm so glad that you did something about it. And if you decide to go back, let us know because we definitely need to promote
I appreciate it.
what you're doing. And, I definitely support you, especially being a dad of two little girls. Don't want, this kind of bullying to continue. It's just generational. And,
It's terrible.
it seems like it's never going to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I train, I conduct training about bullying and again, I have like a different perspective on it now, but I can tell you when I was going through it, like you get to a point, here's what people need to understand is you get to a point, even as a 32-year-old woman, all right? I got to the point where I started to believe all the negative shit being like, it was so inundated. I remember looking at my husband and being like, I was a full-time police officer, right? Like, and he's like, Autumn, are you fucking? I'm like, well, then I don't understand. Why are they saying all this stuff about me? And when you realize that it really isn't about you, it's
Right.
really about all these people. What makes me even more sad, I'm just gonna say this, is this whole like influencer life we live. Just because somebody has a lot of followers and now they're an influencer, there was a lot of fucking law enforcement influencers that are pieces of shit. And that's the truth. Because nobody stood up for me. You know who stood up for me? There was two people. Jason Redman, retired Navy SEAL. He stood up for me because you know what he did? He would actually, people would, people like commented because I worked for him for a while and I spoke at one of his events and people were commenting and he would message them and he'd say, "Hey, thank you for sharing. Send me your resume. Send me your resume so that I know that you're legit. I want to know." Do you know not one motherfucker would send him their resume? Not one. And you know who the other person was? And controversial as he is Dominic Izzo. He cut through the bullshit. I think he even called the Maine Criminal Justice Academy to like vet me. And then when he like saw like everybody coming for me, he was like, what is this? And I'm like, bro, I don't really know. It made me so sad, Juan, that not more influencers who are law enforcement or who are here to do good, they didn't like vet me, support me or anything. What they did was they actually jumped on the bandwagon of we're going to pick on this woman and we're going to pick on female cops. And that is what really put a bad taste in my mouth. And I was like, oh, I'll never forget that.
Well, you know, your story is one example. Unfortunately, there are so many others.
So many.
Yeah. Um, hopefully we can, make a difference.
That's it. That's why I tell my story. This story isn't about being a victim. I don't look at myself as a victim. I went through all of that because there's other people going through it. Men or women, it doesn't matter. Um, they're going through something, going through whether it's, you hit a rock bottom, you are in an identity crisis, you think you're just the job, or you're being bullied. That's why I tell my story. The idea is this. Look, I've gone through all this stuff and now I'm over here. I've built a company. We're out there. We're doing big things. We're making an impact. We haven't stopped. I pivoted a little bit. I still coach female officers. The teachings are the same. It's just not specific to law enforcement anymore.
So, Autumn, tell us. You're speaking, teaching, mentoring. Um, who are you mentoring then these days?
Yeah, so I work with women and girls. A lot of, the women who come to me, they're successful women on the outside. You look at them on the outside and you're like, damn, she's crushing whatever she's doing. But on the inside, she knows that she wants more and she wants to really step into her power. And so a lot of times women come to me because they see it's a mind, body, and intuition approach. And that has been, I mean, you're in the martial arts, you get it. That has been what has helped me throughout my whole life. When I was couch ridden, my black belt didn't save my life. But when I was pinned up against the wall by my neck by some dude, my black belt absolutely saved my life. And to me, we need both. We need it all. And yeah, so women come to me for that. We have different agencies. We have businesses that want to offer empowerment and leadership training, a different kind of leadership training. I'm not coming from that I've led in official capacities because I haven't, but you can't be a good leader until you self-lead, right?
Absolutely.
Right. And so that's the approach and that's what we're up to.
Now, are you traveling across the U.S. Or you're limiting that these days?
So I limited it for the last couple of years, but I'm starting to step back out. We got some plans to go a few places and looking to do the thing. I've been out to Cali a couple times teaching, so maybe I'll be back.
Now, how do you modify your message for different um, audiences?
Well, it's the same.
Right.
Empowerment's empowerment.
That's right. So it doesn't matter what, if you're in law enforcement, doesn't matter if you're in education, it's all the same.
It's all the same.
Oh,
100%.
oh. Yes, absolutely. Um, now, what else? What about what else are you currently involved with, Autumn?
What am I involved with?
Yeah.
Well,
What else is your, what else are you teaching or are you working on? What can we look forward to?
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited because the She's an Asset podcast is coming back. So we took a bit of a sabbatical in 2025. You'll see those like 6 episodes. But that's coming back, and I'm excited because it's different. I'm chilling on my couch, just having conversations, just being real about life. And that's how I started, and that's what I want to get back to. Um, so we have that coming out. We have events. One of the things that She's an Asset does, which is my leadership and empowerment training company, we put on events, travel around. We have one in Maine, in Bangor, Maine in April. We have another one we're planning to go in New Hampshire, and we're looking to take this and put on these events nationwide. And it's just an opportunity for women to come together and learn and grow and transform in a way that I don't see being done. We're combining situational awareness and how to use your body as a weapon, you know, combining that with personal development in a way that's not being done. So yeah, so we have that going on. Um, I'm writing a book, so that's exciting.
Yeah. You have a title yet?
I can't tell you, but
Yeah.
it
All right. All right.
But yeah, I'm writing a book, not a memoir. It's really going to be about like it's going to be like a workbook, right? Like how to overcome all this shit, because the thing is, Juan, is I really believe, and this is for all of us, everything, is happening for us, not to us. And
Mhm.
I believe it has happened to me so that I can go out and I can teach and I can give and I can help because I want every person who hears my story, male or female, doesn't matter. I want them to be empowered in their lives, and I don't want them to stop. Don't stop. Just keep going.
Well, if you keep going, you kind of spread the message.
That's it.
Yeah. And we need more of that. Absolutely. Uh, now, tell us what is like one self defense habit that you would suggest women to adopt?
Well, I mean, there's so many, but I'm going to go back to, a few things. First thing is really let's identify your body language. Studies and statistics will tell us that it's like over 55% of how you are being judged is based on your body language alone. It's like 25% of how you're being judged is how you sound. And then the rest is what you actually say. So, we spend a lot of time like, do I sound stupid? I don't care what your words are. I really care about how you carry yourself. And I really care about, that how you project and how you talk. So in law enforcement, that's life-saving. That's a life-saving skill. But I teach civilians that too because it's a deterrent. Predators want an easy target. They don't want someone who's going to be a fight and who's going to be a pain in the ass, right? Really, they don't. They want easy. And so if you can look like a hard target, you're already deterring, right? The other thing, and we touched about it, but like we really, our eyes, we need to be looking around, our heads up. I teach a like shoulder to shoulder 360. It really essentially just look behind you. Sometimes, like
Right.
so many times, we're not looking behind ourselves. We're not looking for people's hands. Especially as women, we're too busy looking into their eyes, and it's like, fuck their eyes, look at their hands because their hands are gonna kill you, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that would be like my basics.
Now, what's one of the biggest mistakes you think that people make about their personal safety?
I think they don't listen to their gut. I think they don't listen to their, I think they don't listen to their intuition. And I think that we have what's called normalcy bias, especially in the States, where you've lived your life up to this time and you've never really had anything bad happen to you. And so you just don't think it's ever going to happen. But that's what predators are looking for. They're looking for that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What advice is the best advice you ever received yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I know I thought about this a lot. I mean, if we just talk about it in general, obviously it's the power of trusting and believing in yourself is there is nothing more powerful. I'm just going to tell you. You want to go out and you want to make an impact, you want to, change the world, you want to live a fulfilled life. You you have got to start really trusting yourself. I play with the idea of like what the hell is believing in myself? Believing what? Well, I go back to it's trusting my intuition. And it's trusting myself to know, like, I might not know how to do something, but I'm gonna give it everything I got. And I just want to say, it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter what career, it doesn't matter where you're at in your life. If you really want to make a difference, you start paying attention to you. Pay attention to what you're thinking about. Pay attention to what you're consuming. Pay attention to what your thoughts are, what negative and limiting beliefs you have, and start to really work on them and flip them into actually believing the positive stuff about you. I think with everything I've gone through, Juan, I mean, you get in this job and you think you're going to put your full career in. I mean, hello, that was what I was planning on doing, working my way up. I was working with the detectives when I got hurt. I planned on becoming a detective and then working my way up. And we all do. We plan on putting a full career in, right? But life happens. And so we have to be able to pivot. And we can only pivot if we can trust our guts. Otherwise, we're going to become paralyzed and we're going to be stuck in fear and we're not going to go out and live our life to the best of our abilities.
Yes. And if we do that, we become the victim.
That's it.
Now, Autumn, what how do you define strength?
How do I define strength?
Yeah, how does Autumn define strength? I'm thinking that it's your definition has evolved throughout your different experiences. So, what does strength look like today?
You know, I think it's this, right? We can talk about resiliency. I think that's really important, being able to overcome hard things. I also think it's like true strength. And this is this might be a little out there for some people, but true strength is really recognizing that you're in control. It's me. And it's me against me.
Mhm.
And like we hold on to these grudges. Look, do you know how easy it could be for me to hold on to the grudge? I got uninvited from, one of my partner's weddings. My whole police department stopped talking to me. There was an illegal email that got sent out that said told everybody to not talk to me. I could hold all these grudges and I did. I did. But true strength isn't being pissed off at everybody and isn't being and walking around and being angry. True strength is, no, this happened for me and I'm not mad at you. In fact, you know what? I'm sending you lots of love. That's true strength. And it's taken me, a lot of my whole life to recognize that. But when I look at somebody who can do that and you're like, wait a minute, they just screwed you over and you're just gonna like you're okay with that. And the person can be like, yeah, it's no big deal. I'm not even mad at them. And I'm like, whoa, that's that's power.
I like that because, as we get older, and I'm much older than you are, but we get wiser, and I've learned a tough lesson that, what, it's whatever people do to me, it's not about me, it's always about them. Always.
Yes.
Them.
Always.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, let me ask you, what is one sentence that you would want women to remember?
That I'm powerful. I want them to say that. Like I am powerful.
Yes. You are loved. You are powerful. Yes.
That's it, right? Now, she's an asset. The name of my company was developed because during that time where everybody was trying to cancel me online, I kept hearing that women are liabilities. Don't be a liability. Women are liabilities, especially in law enforcement. And I was in yoga and I was on my yoga mat and I just remember hearing, she's not a liability, she's an asset. And that's really important. I want every woman and man listening to know like you're the asset right now. Right now, you're the asset in your life. You don't need anything on the outside of you. But society will have you convinced that you are not whole and you need all this shit on the outside to fill yourself up.
100%. You know, sometimes the liabilities are in the administration.
I've heard that a time or two.
uh, Autumn, awesome, awesome interview. I thank you. Thank you so much. Um, I want to ask you if there's anything else that you would want to share with listeners about what you're doing or anything at all.
Yeah, I appreciate it. If anybody who's listening resonates with this at all, I'd really like to invite you to come to she'sanasset.com where we have a podcast. You can check out our trainings. We have online trainings and in person. And, again, we're looking to come across the country. And so, you want to have us out, we can do that. We can create an event. We can do some trainings. And I think, as we wind down, what I really want to leave all of your listeners with is it's just really important that you recognize how powerful you are right now in your life, but your true power really does come from believing and trusting yourself. And that is everything.
Well, Autumn, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and God bless you. Please continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. Please leave any comments, subscribe. Let us know what other stories you want to hear. Let us know what you think, what's on your mind. We're going to finish off with a message, a prayer from our brother in Christ, our brother in law enforcement, Greg Admonson. Thank you for watching.
We come before you with gratitude for the brave men and women who have answered the sacred call to protect and serve. You said in Romans 13, verse 4, that the one in authority is God's servant for your good. Lord, we thank you for every officer who stands the line. We thank you for every officer who runs toward the sound of danger when others run away. We thank you, God, for every officer who brings order out of chaos and who seeks justice with compassion. Father, as warriors in a fallen world, we draw our strength from you. Your word declares in Psalm 144, verse 1, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for every battle." Train our hands, Lord, not only for the battles of the street, but for the battles within. Give us courage when fear whispers. Give us patience when tempers rise. Grant us wisdom when decisions must be made in an instant. Lord, we ask for your divine protection over every officer in the field. Surround them with your angels as a shield, as you promised in Psalm 91. And let your peace guard their heart and mind in Christ Jesus. When they grow weary, remind them that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. Almighty God, you are our strength. You are our shield. You are our ever-present help in times of trouble. Father, when the day's work is done, bring them home safely. Restore their spirit, renew their joy, and remind them that they do not fight this battle alone. For you go before them, you go beside them, you are with them. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, our commander and king. Amen.